Hi, folks. Welcome to the third of our series of workshops for building out tabletop exercises for the infant and toddler feeding series. I'm Mike Broussard with Barton Do Not, and this is where we're at. I wanted to just kind of give you a quick overview of what's happening beforehand, and that is that this you should hopefully have had a chance to look at the exercise template and other series materials, such as the workshop recordings and the tabletop exercises from the prior two workshops. That's the before and the during one. This is the after one. This is moving towards long-term recovery and mitigation for pediatric feeding, infant and toddler feeding for this series. And let's just get into it. So this is the material that we have. This is our exercise plan handbook. And this, as well as the recordings for all of this material, is out on the Barton Do Not website, which is www.bartondonot.com. And then there's a research section you can look for and find this information there. It is designed to be self-running. You can do this yourselves, or you can have any consultants or others help with actually implementing and evaluating any exercises that you have. But we're basically building out these templates for states, tribals, entities, territories, and local jurisdictions to use at their convenience whenever they want to help build out their pediatric feeding and disasters program. So that's our handling instructions. This is a typical Homeland Security exercise and evaluation program document. We are following HCEP standards for the design of the exercise templates that we have. And here's our building blocks. Today, we're going to cover the long-term recovery and mitigation one, and that's starting on page 12. And I'm going to scroll through this so you can see what we've got. We're going to add a fourth one for logistics, for the supply chain management and supply chain integrity, security issues, because we believed from our prior work that that is an issue that is certainly coming up, that multiple organizations have indicated that this is, the supply chain and logistics part of it probably needs its own tabletop exercise. That'll be the next one. But right now, here we are. Let me just get through this. And again, this document's available on the web. We're hoping at some point on the National Mass Care Strategy website, but for now, it's on the bartondonot.com website. And here we are. So now we're at long-term recovery mitigation. So this is going to be the final workshop in the three-part series, the before, during, and after, and I'll modify that as well too, to say that. Part series. And we're building a tabletop for mitigation and long-term recovery. We took interim recovery and added it to response, because that's usually typically what happens. People are evacuating as part of the response. They're in the shelter. The incident is over. Then they're going into recovery, but they may still be in the shelter because they're unable to restore back to their communities, their homes, whatever else. So that is where sort of those two phases tend to blend together, just as long-term recovery and the work being done for mitigation tends to blend together too. Recovery and mitigation needed. Okay, so we want to make sure that everybody has an after-action report improvement plan segment in the exercise. Our template will have that. It's one of the modules. I think we have probably 3 modules in total. The third one is just like the other ones, the after action hot wash kind of a thing, but that's important to sort of build out where you're going to modify your plans and your organization and your equipment and your training and your future exercises. So here we are. These are the specifics that we've identified. And again, we encourage states, locals, tribals, territories, SLTTs to modify this, to give feedback to us and others in the mass care world on how to make this exercise this tabletop better, and the guidance and whatever else it is out there. But here's what we've got so far. Financial considerations for donating durable medical equipment and consumable medical supplies to clients post-sheltering, emergency use in shelters, etc. So what that means is, how do we get breast pumps, breastfeeding equipment, continuation of lactation counseling? Those are kind of the three legs to the disabilities and access and functional needs stool, so to speak, that the three-legged stool that are involved, and with breastfeeding and other pediatric feeding concerns. The ability for an organization to a government organization, for example, or a sheltering organization, to distribute those items to the clients, to the families after the incidents happen is a question. So let's call it brass tacks. If you didn't come in with a breast pump, but one was provided for your use in a shelter, do you have the ability to take that home? Is there enough capacity for that to happen? Are there resources for you to get a different one in your community after the disaster? What if you can't pay for it? What if Medicare isn't covering it? What if your insurance isn't covering it? All those kinds of questions are part of the tabletop exercise. I think that having those procedures and policies and protocols in place will help shelter operators and recovery caseworkers and others to know what to do. That's what this is about. So, and included in that, as we noted in the guidance here, is considerations for continued no-cost lactation counseling for those without insurance coverage. So that's part of that what if structure. It may be that Medicare or Medicaid is covering some of this in terms of people who are in those programs, WIC and other things, but maybe not. We want to be as open in terms of emergency management capabilities to everyone, regardless of their residency status or their citizenship status, et cetera. Consideration for incorporating milk banks into a jurisdiction. This may be a mitigation effort. We want to bring it up. We want to loop it in. From what we can tell from the research that we've done, this is not something that's incorporated in the United States. The idea that milk banks are considered part of the emergency management construct for a jurisdiction, the same way blood banks are, or the same way food banks are. That is the kind of the question, and that's why this is in there as part of the tabletop exercise, to go through that process, to have those conversations start, to potentially bring those players into the mix for the exercise and future exercise. Identify other subject matter expert jurisdictions who can assist with the POETE process for future exercises or responses of scale. That is where you're trying to partner and collaborate and coordinate with other jurisdictions who may know better than you do. We're doing this as part of the National Mass Care Exercise. There's a case, for example, in 2024, where the state of Pennsylvania is opening its doors to other states and other jurisdictions to say, hey, here's how we're doing it, and we're planning on doing it. Tell us how you might be able to do it better, and B, maybe we have something that we can share with you. So this is part of this that I think is important. And then finally, we want to see, as I mentioned before, how this exercise, this specific tabletop, can be part of a larger conversation of continued improvement, meaning that someone else does it and they fix it and they make it better, and then gets it back up to the National Mass Care Strategy, so that the documentation, the pre-planning, the work ahead of time is and the exercise is built ahead of time are more collaborative, more communicative, et cetera, that they're better. That's the bottom line. So that's where we're at in terms of what we have for information. Let me see if there's anything else. So I think those were the basic questions. And we want to offer out any other options that anybody's thinking about. Again, looking at a long-term, looking at a logistics one for another tabletop. I'll modify the document, the exercise facilitator handbook, to show that, and then update this, and then build out the draft of um, uh, the tabletop exercise template itself, the Sitman for that. That's what we're doing. And then we are, again, hoping that other groups and consultants and whoever else can come backfill in exercise evaluation guides and other material that's always needed for this more robust, to make it. We're starting the template. We're getting the questions going. We're building the framework for it. So I think that's what we've got in here so far. So without that, I'm not going to go into any of the prior material. I think that's already there. But look for the template for the tabletop exercise, again, soon to be out on the bartondunant.com website. And then again, hopefully at some point down the road, all of this material will be available on the National Mass Care Strategy website as well too. And then you'll be able to use it and modify it potentially, and then resubmit it back up as a jurisdiction for consideration to improve it for everyone. Great, and thank you very much. And we will see you again on the next webinar, again on logistics.